Right now, my current entertainment is that the dream state is base consciousness,
Base consciousness. Okay.
and that
How are you defining dream state?
like what we experience when we're dreaming, that ephemeral things manifest and dissipate and come into reality, and it's all, and like that what makes material reality special is it's like I see it sort of like as the surface of an ocean, and like you jump underwater and you hold your breath for as long as you can, but you eventually have to return to the dream state, and that's why everything dreams. And I think that
Got it.
like as far as unifying people around, we all dream, so like we can at least hold each other, we know we share that common ground. So the like in all the darkness, the end of contact when Elle's talking to her father, it's like the only thing that makes, in all our travelings, the only thing we found that makes the darkness bearable is each other. I put myself in the theater, and depending on the theater, there people can run in screaming stuff, and I'll be like, oh, that's probably a meth head, and not care that they're
Right.
screaming fire. So like that counter that objection needed to come through. I'm sorry, continue.
No, you're absolutely right. And so that's what I consider to be agency, right? To make that decision. If you yell fire in a crowded theater, significant portion of people are going to panic no matter what, right? Those people have that relationship between what has been said and what is reality set in stone to the degree that they consider it to be reality, right? You, on the other hand, kind of take that relationship and say, maybe this relationship isn't as strong as we think it is. And then you start doubting. And so, essentially, you're exercising agency in a much stronger way because the people that automatically assume there's a fire, there's a relationship that has been ossified to the degree that they just sort of take people at their word.
That ossified makes it sound like it's not a pleasant thing. That
Well, yeah, that's
that they can trust that the only reason a person would come in and yell in a theater, like that a person would have enough reverence for the social construct of the theater experience to not come yell fire unless it was a threat to your agency. Did you ever, I made this beautiful Vervaeke Care Agency thing out of chopping up one of his 50-part series.
Processes that make us intelligently adaptive also make us vulnerable to self-deceptive, self-destructive behavior.
Care, capacity to be agents, being a self-organizing, self-correcting, self-optimizing. Care, capacity to be agents, self-developing, evolving process. Care to create the conditions of meaning making. Care to create the conditions of meaning making. What we're actually engaging in, is agape.
Each of us has an angel.
Agape is to love for its own sake, the process. Because my valuing of it does not constitute it into existence. I emerge from it and participate in it. We have to care about the conditions that make any caring possible.
And your situational awareness, the states of consciousness you get access to, ultimately depend on your character.
Well, that's a lot to swallow.
That when we care to create the conditions of meaning making because we find them inherently valuable, because that is constitutive of our capacity to be agents and to value anything else. When we're doing that, what we're actually engaging in is agape.
It's love.
Let's remember this. We've lost the nomological, this deep sense of coherence and connectedness. We lost the normative order, sense of significance, depth through self-transcendence. As we've lost this, right, we have a worldview again in which we don't belong, in which our projects don't belong. It's something that people are already doing.
Each of us has an angel.
We can address the process of alienation. communication through the cultivation of communitas. We can respond to existential entrapment by the cultivation of gnosis.
Gnosticism is a perennial heresy.
The process of meaning making is the process of being a person. Process of being a person. Mind is not program, software, or rule-bound manipulation of symbols. Instead, the mind arises through immediate coping with the world. Immediate coping with the world. Immediate coping with the world. The way we are evolving the sensory motor loop, right? So that we deal with the problems at hand. Think about how this just sings to everything we've been doing here, right?
Offer you an opportunity to participate in the Alien Salience Project.
Love.
Contextual, I'd say that the capacity for agency is similar to the capacity to manage relationships. Like the more relationships you can manage, the higher your level of agency. My thing on consciousness is that it's a napkin ring, a spinning napkin ring. And like, while it's spinning, you can wobble more left or wobble more right as far as in your brain. So I don't know how that maps to your model, but that's what consciousness is for me.
Yeah, but what you're saying is what consciousness is, and you're trying to model what consciousness is. I'm trying to model what consciousness does. And
No. What? What? Hi.
I'm the sort that thinks there's something beyond this. And that when I get to the other side of what this is, I'm going to be going around to a lot of people going, I remember what you did down there. I remember. Shame on you. But let me spend a lot of time thinking about this. And like, you ask yourself questions like, how is it we can exist in the world where the food is mostly poison? How does it play out that that's okay on the spiritual level? And the thing I've come to with regard to how is this sort of thing okay on the spiritual level is ignorance is no excuse. In fact, I suspect that we live in a system in which the people playing for Team B get more points if it's bad for you and you consent to do it. Like, you know better, or you should know better, and you do it anyway. I think they get more points for that. And do you not have a grip on radiation? It can cook your food in a microwave and you still don't. I mean,
how do I grip it? How do I grip radiation?
By pressing 30 seconds and start.
That's not, you're not gripping radiation, you're gripping the sensation of your flesh searing. That's a different thing.
No,
right?
I'm talking about microwaving something. Like, you as a human have a grip on radiation because your people have harnessed it into a machine that can cook your food. And that's my thoughts on everything. What's going on? What's going on is Thunder Bay gave us the realization that we've lost the ability to communicate with the outside world a little bit. And that let Paul know we need to do onboarding and on-ramping stuff. In the meantime, the Antifa destroyed the Bridges of Meaning Discord. And now we're seeing whether or not there was enough community amongst us to maintain the destruction of that.
Antifa didn't destroy that. Antifa
hey, this is my take, sir.
Okay.
And this thing where we're in response to the collapse of the Bridges of Meaning, people want to do things. Is great, but we have to maintain the function we were already serving, which is Paul's homeroom and us going off to our other classes and then coming back together and talking about it.
Okay, so the story is that our society has been experiencing a lot of weirdness because we look towards the people who are supposed to make sense of things, and they are not making a lot of sense. And on the internet, there are voices which do make sense. And these voices sound like everybody from Jimmy Dore to Joe Rogan to Jordan Peterson to Paul Vanderklay.
Can we call those mavens?
Maven is a good word. It's a Hebrew word. That's the important part. And so these mavens grow communities. Now, these communities tend to, at times, start coalescing the way you would expect. But what some of us have noticed, particularly me, is whenever one of these mavens gets going, like, for some reason, it gets sabotaged. And I started focusing on that sabotage. And so I was more involved in the Eric Weinstein community.
Time out.
What was that?
Don't worry, keep going.
Okay. And I saw the sabotage there that destroyed that community. At the same time, I saw Paul Vanderklay had more of the skills necessary for dealing with community cohesion than anybody else, partially because he is a pastor. And I got involved with Bridges of Meaning, which was one of his communities. I mean, obviously the YouTube community is a little bit different, and he is trying to do something a little bit different on Estuary. And obviously he has his church, right? These are different communities that Paul is working in. I don't think I appreciated how important Joey's leadership was until he was gone. But Joey was a magnificent leader, and he was the one who was really keeping Bridges of Meaning going. And
that is one of the most, like, of the people in the corner that I want to do a Fringe encounter with. He's top of the list.
Joey, I mean, yeah, but if you want to talk to Joey, you need to talk to Joey one-on-one, not on video.
Well, I assume me and Joey will work that out if he hears this and gives a shit. But
what happened when Joey left the server was, I believe, the people who have been monitoring our Bridges of Meaning and Paul Vanderklay saw an opportunity to attack, particularly in Germany. And I think that was the weak point, and they did attack. And our response was negligent because Paul refuses to acknowledge his leadership role and his responsibilities. And if our leadership is irresponsible, we are going to fail.
The corner is like this kind of, it depends on at what level. You do have you have these nested like blobs or networks, but there's a group that surrounds Paul Vanderklay, and it seems like that group has some overlap with people who are around other people like John Vervaeke and Jonathan Pajot, and then by extension we have some kind of relationship with Jordan Peterson to one degree or another. And what's happened in the last 9 months, I would say, honestly, I don't know, but I can share my take on like Thunder Bay, the breakup on Bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
your take on that stuff.
And I could also talk about the higher level that Jacob's trying to talk about as well. But so Thunder Bay, yeah, there's a good question there on, it sounds like there was someone who was invited who wasn't prepared. hadn't gone through some type of initiation or introduction. And then there's a question of, well, can we do something different to help other potential mavens, potential people who have their own network to rapidly kind of onboard, right? So, yeah, that's a good question. And it would just take effort from that maven, right? Ultimately, obviously, it's harder if you just have to go figure it out on your own. But yeah, it would be nice to have a little bit of material for onboarding. I've done this at companies and organizations. It's a good idea. So yeah, that's the thing that Grimgris is pointing out. He's also pointing out there was a breakup in Bomb. Yeah, I think, I kind of saw that coming. I actually had a dream about it over a year ago about the train wreck on the bridges of meaning. But there was literally a train going over a bridge that got derailed and went flying off into the trees, and it was nasty. But yeah, there's a bit of a train wreck that happened. We could try to figure out why it happened and how to avoid it, or you could look at it and say it's an opportunity and maybe something better can come out of it as well. Everything that happens can be an opportunity to have something better come out of whatever happens, right? We can use it. I think Hezi is calling it the divine spark that could be in everything. And then Grimgris is pointing out the homeroom. Yeah, I was thinking about the substitute teachers. I like that Jacob is allowing me to do a just chatting that goes to his channel, and that's just wonderful. Nobody the closest thing to that is Jeff with the Randos United channel, and that kind of effort I think can be really important. So I do wonder if Paul will ever have a substitute teacher hop in. And I don't know if you guys have the experiences I've had with substitute teachers, but sometimes they come in and they're a little crazy. They get picked on, people take advantage of them. But
it's fascinating, actually, you bring that up, because that had happened. I mean, what this corner was at one point of its existence was the campfire gathering was the Friday Q&As. And he did have substitute teachers come in on that. A couple of them were good, and then one was Benjamin Boyce.
The dark web. The idea that when you name something, it gets destroyed is half right. When you name something, it becomes possible to destroy it because it becomes an actual entity. And the only way you can be a real force in the world, right? The term Christianity, when the Christians first started being called Christians in Antioch, that didn't destroy Christianity. That allowed Christianity to be a thing in the world. And once you actually have a name, once you have an identity, it can have a position within your society. It can occupy a position in people's minds. People can identify with it. It becomes a real spirit that motivates people and acts in the world. And yes, that means you can get attacked, which is what happened with the IDW, which is what's going to happen if we actually do end up with a name that works. But look, ultimately, we have to build enough trust with each other to understand that we're better off working together than we are alone, and making compromises and having some vow of stability between us. Brittany, you can actually be the police will show up at your door for mean tweets.
That's kind of the point. That's, all you guys want to argue about the Trinity and the Noahides, and I'm like, the situation is far more serious than any of you are willing to admit. Could you at least start sending your youth to physical training combat in the form of paintball for Jesus, so I have some hope for the future?
sense making and mavens get sabotaged, and there's this question about what are we doing, and I want to try to integrate those two. Right?
Yes. Okay. That's a good. That's a fun abstraction level discussion. I like it.
So I keep on talking about distributed cognition because I think that's the most important thing. And my project, the objective of my project right now is secured distributed cognition, because what Vervaeke's work and cognitive science in general has shown is we have this mistaken belief that who I think I am, is contained within my skin. And the fact is that the processing necessary for me, to function, is not contained within my skin. In fact, there are at least some parts of it which I distribute to other people and other animals. I actually think part of the reason my dog keeps me sane is because I distribute important parts of my cognition to my dog. And the problem is that our distributed cognition is being hacked, but using very sophisticated psychotechnologies. Most people are not even competent and capable to understand how those psychotechnologies exist, much less how they work. And if we are going to secure our distributed cognition, being insulted by me is not rare.
If we are going to secure our distributed cognition,
what do we have to do if we're going to secure our distributed cognition?
It's a great question, right? So that's the question. I think that's from, like, there's a question. Everybody's coming into this and saying, "Show me what we're building."
Well, I think
that's
it's why.
Potentially the building. Like, I think Grimgris wants to do beholders, right? This is similar.
There are so many things I wanted. I'm a prototypist, my man.
But
I really do think you're an intuitive genius. When I look at how you're a mimetic intuitive genius, when I look at how you weave these things together and what comes out of you, these images that come out, it's really inspiring. There
was this one time, there was an instance of intimacy, and there was a triggering event, and so there was. This is not someone I would normally have been intimate with, but as I approached the moment of intimacy, I felt like each of the layers of myself that wouldn't do it get peeled off like the clothes.
Right.
And those are all masks, I think.
They are layers.
And so, like,
the different characters we play, the LARP.
If all you want to be is your legal fiction, that's fine. But who else are you?
That stream about porn, how people can't let it. I can't remember what you said exactly. Like, you think it stays with you or whatever. And she seemed it like it does. We established in this. We argued.
Yeah.
In the stream that any narrative you eat becomes part of you.
Right.
Because you are what you eat, and you've eaten the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't comfortable with the way we left it seem like you can't be washed clean of those parts of you, or you can't repurpose those parts of you, or
alchemize those parts of you.
Yeah, we made it seem like they were too permanent, like it was too much permanent damage, and she's seen too much recovery to leave it like that.
Yeah.
Like, I tend to remember facts, not sensation. Right? I'm not a visceral rememberer normally. And that's like the one I was trying to talk about on that stream. Those are like the visceral sensation memories of what it was like when the internet wasn't a presence in my head.
Yeah.
you probably like can touch that memory, or you have a lot more of those to touch.
Yes.
So
Yes,
you know, but the internet is a thing in your head now, right? You get that?
right. It is.
It feels right now like saying it filled with your own spirit.
Yeah.
And so maybe since Chad was being filled with a different spirit, it's just whenever a human is filled with spirit is what we consider feeling alive. And what are we the rest of the time? And what is that feeling?
And which spirit do we choose?
So what I'm grateful that I'm alive and a part, and I'm kind of reflecting on how really good I have it right now. And
gratitude.
Yeah, right. And so like when I'm in gratitude or separation is when I kind of feel like I don't belong here, or and I could say like sometimes I feel like a real piece of shit, but honestly, the only time I really feel like that is when I'm feeling like I'm not connected to other people, and that's where I start to something inside of me gets distorted, and I start to feel like all sorts of yucky,
like the boundary testing. Like that's a thing that animals and people will do. That whole like, so like, what if I choose this? Is there a boundary there? You know?
Right. Right.
I just flip it.
I got a contribution from Neutrino.
Pardon?
Neutrino said, which apparently is the pneuma is the Holy Spirit. Another way to say Holy Spirit. The gap between knowing better and doing better is something that's perplexed me for the entire course of my life.
Who am I to me? Who am I communicating that I'm to,
Who am I willing to be for you?
Yeah, and it's this dance of like, it's sort of this constant negotiation. Yeah, it to me, in a way, it straddles the line between negotiation and gaslighting. You can like.
No, the gaslighting is because you can't.
Yeah,
the gaslighting comes to play because you can't negotiate because it ruins the LARP.
Would you give me a concrete definition of gaslighting?
We've already given you a concrete definition of gaslighting, Magic, like 2 seconds ago.
Give me another one.
We are intersecting at the edges of our sacred canopies, and those bubbles get busted when taboos are introduced. Ooh, that's the villages breathe heroes. And so this quest, when you go out and get your big education at college and stuff, you were supposed to take the treasure back to the home and the family and the village. And that part has been normalized away. I think in the same way, cosmologically, right? Like we're the breath of the true and the good and the beautiful breathed into this material plane. And this quest for a spiritual home is how it turns to the lost prodigal. We've forgotten the home we came for, and we can't hear the welcome home call. And Navy Nib, as well as those who rang in solid on the give send go.
He who guards his tongue, proverb says, preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips, it is his ruin.
In the cave, screaming shadow, in a theater, yelling film, on an X tweeting psyop, in a stall, casting pearls. True friends tell you, go to your dad's. Don't forget the God mask. Oh, the point I was actually making. Oh, yes, my takeaway from the speech he gave there is that when we grasp something and won't let go of it, it becomes idolatry. That, like, if I gisted it, that's the
themselves. It was the grabbing for themselves that transformed it into death, that God was to give it to them. They had to receive it as a gift from heaven, is the best way to describe that.
The thing that is said, that was presented to us by the gods, was generally agriculture and city building things, and just if you could just take that, farming, the concept of farming, right, and the fractals, right, farming and fractals. That's really all I gotta say for someone to take it as dark as it needs to go for them. Or what's a rabbit? Does a rabbit rabbit? And where does a rabbit to if a rabbit rabbits? And there may not be a rabbit hole for the rabbits. So then what's a rabbit to do?
Say that because the idea is not to fast so that you have more pleasure, like some of the Epicureans, but that is going to happen. Actually, it's like and we see that in the way that the Orthodox tradition presents the spiritual life. That's actually how the whole spiritual life is presented.
The whole grasping thing. See, okay, so I consider it still estuary salt, right? Because I cannot go take, hey, you guys know what? Alan Watts, right? And just drop it into the corn, into it's breathe, just fucking breathe, bro. Like, if you're good, whatever you make it, like, as far as you make it in this life, it will be by breathing your way through it.
And you got Alan Moore to
Yes, I
flash
have a
at
gift
me.
for you from your nemesis.
You got Promethea. That's awesome.
It's his masterwork
It
about
is.
the apocalypse.
Thank you. Thanks.
If you'd like
that's an amazing gift, man.
If you'd like to tear
Thank
it
you
apart
so much.
symbolically, that'd be great.
That's an amazing gift.
So also the Meaning of Life book guy, Frank, what's his nuts? Anyway, he said that you could tell the ones who had given up because they smoked their cigarettes instead of using them as currency with the guards in the camps, right? And like ever since then, I started smoking, and that. So the question is, how to like once you've surrendered, how do you not surrender anymore?